Its purpose is to just cut stock off to a manageable length. And it's sort of a time saver. I mean, you wouldn't really like it too much if you needed a piece off that 3x3 piece of box tube there. And you went to cut it, and I said, well, how do I cut this? And I handed you a hacksaw. Okay? One, you'd be really tired by the time you're done. Two, your shirt won't fit because you've got arms like Popeye now. So it's a labor saving device. Really simple to use. Okay? It's got a hydraulic motor that is used to raise it. So you get it up to some height so you can get your material in there. And then once you have positioned your material to cut it, you tighten up the vise. And then you turn the machine on. And to lower it, all you're doing is you're just going to turn this dial. Obviously, you get it close to your work first, and then you slow it down, and you let it fall somewhere between 3 and 4 is all you need. It doesn't look like it's falling very fast, but it actually is. Now, once it finishes its cut, it will trip the switch and shut the machine off, take the parts out of the vise, put them away, away you go. The one thing you need to be aware of with this machine is that you always have to have 2 teeth on the blade in the work at all times. It does not like to cut thin material, as with any saw. Okay? You have to make sure that you have that 2 teeth engaged. Otherwise, you're just going to strip teeth off, or if it's a handsaw, it's just going to bounce across the surface. It's not going to give you a very nice cut. This machine will cut round stock. The one thing that you must do if you cut round stock in this machine is double check the vise before you start to make sure it's tight. Okay? If you don't, it'll tend to want to roll apart or just fire it right out of the machine.
What's round stock?
Round stock? Anything like this. Anything that's round. Okay? Now, that's all there is there. Let's come on. Okay. This machine is known as the sign says, the vertical contour bandsaw. Okay. Anybody here taken woodwork in high school? You remember one of these things before? What? Did you take woodwork in high school? Did you remember one of these things?
Is it one of the up down?
Oh, that's the scroll saw.
Oh,
no. Okay. So, if there is a potential for injury in the shop, this is the machine that it's going to happen on. Okay. One, because it's really simple to use, and I think because of that, people are not as cautious. And two, it doesn't look as if it's very dangerous. And if you go to your local grocery store, if you take a look, if there's a butcher working in the back, you take a look at what he's working with, and you'll find one of these things standing up in the corner somewhere. Okay? And it's exactly the same machine, just got a different blade on it, that's all. So you always have to be very mindful of your hands when you're using this machine, because you manipulate everything with your hands. So if you look at your hands, if you stick them out in front of you like that, and you close your fingers up together, you notice that your thumbs stick out. And unfortunately, it's just sort of the way it is. Things that stick out usually get cut off. Okay? So you take your thumbs and you tuck them in underneath your palms like that. Okay? It seems kind of awkward at first, but you use the back of your thumb as a block to push against. Okay? Now, when you go to operate this machine, the thing that you have to be aware of is that 2 inches either side of this blade is where you do not want to get your fingers. Okay, so if your piece is less than 4 inches wide, you're going to be using something called a push stick. Okay, and these are a couple of things that we manufactured here to use as push sticks. Okay, you can see they've been all cut up, so people have been using them for exactly what they're intended for. Okay, and so if your piece is less than 4 inches wide, you're going to either put the corners of your part on those two little shelves and manipulate it through that way, or you are going to put the push stick right behind your part, and then you're going to push it through this way. Now, on your test it says, should you always use a push stick? Yes or no? In my view, the correct answer on the test is yes. Okay? I didn't write the test. As far as I'm concerned, the number one thing whenever you operate a machine tool, it doesn't matter what it is, if you have to have control over the part. Okay? If you don't, bad things are going to happen. So, to that end, if it's big enough that you can hang on to it safely with your hands, and your hands are out here away from the blade, no more than 2 inches close to the blade, 2 inches either side, 4 inches total, then manipulate it by hand. If it's getting close to that 4-inch mark or less, use a push stick. Okay? And but regardless of whether you're using a push stick or your hands, never get your fingers directly behind that blade. Some people may think, well, it's a nice long piece, and no problem. But if you're out here and you're pushing on a piece of wood, if that wood has grain to it, grain boundaries, they let go all the time. You're sawing it. If that lets go and you're putting pressure on it, you could very easily end up in the blade. If it's plastic, plastic shatters. Okay? You could again end up in the blade. And with steel or metal, the problem is that it's nice and slick. Okay? It's very smooth. So you could be pushing along and it's quite easy for you to slip over top of it. And you could again land in the blade. So keep out of the keep out of the way of the blade, and you're going to be okay. Now, you are not strictly limited to cutting flat work on this bandsaw. You can cut round work too, but you need to cut it and odd shaped work, but you need to hold it somehow, okay? And we have two ways of holding it. You can use this parallel bar clamp that cams over and locks your part in place, and then you can run it through. Or you can, and I just grabbed this large drill vise as an example. I wouldn't necessarily use this, it's rather cumbersome. I would tend to want to use the smaller ones. But what you do is you turn it upside down like this, you have it on its flat top, and then what you do is you clamp your part between the jaws, tighten the jaws up, and tighten up for me. That screw is burned out on this one. That's not good. So you would tighten the jaws up and clamp your part that way. And then you would hold the vise while you run your part through. Okay? Now, the first thing you do before you even consider turning the machine on is you're going to cut anything. Okay, I'll use this piece of wood as an example. You need to set the blade guard height. Right now it's where it should be when I come over here to use this machine. It should always end up, when you're done, always put it down against the table. What you want to do is you want to set the blade guard height so it's no more than a few inches, or no more than 1/8 of an inch above the work. The closer the better. So we set it like that. We run the saw through, or pardon me, we run the part through the saw, just at the side. To make sure that it goes all the way through. Then we can go ahead and we can cut our part. Okay? Now, to turn the machine on, it's just like over at the other drill press. Okay? It's got a switch that locks down when you press it. So you need to give it a little bit of a turn to the right to release it. And then you take the key, which is on my desk. Neil and I both have keys for this machine, so if you want to use it, just come and ask one of us. Put the key in, turn it to the right, press the green button, and off you go. Now, when you're finished, of course, you would just drop this down, turn it off, and give me back the key. Now, the machine is not necessarily good at cutting straight lines. If you want to cut straight lines or straight edges, don't bother with this machine. It's it's an effort and frustration. What you want to do is come see me. We'll do it some other way, either table saw or water jet or something. Now, it cuts contours really well, though. Okay, so you could easily cut this contour, starting at that end, run it all the way through, and pop out at the backside. No problem. The problem is when you come to something like this where you do not have a direct path in and out. Okay, you cannot make a square corner with this machine. You always have to come from two directions. So in order to cut something like this out, you are going to have to perform something that's called relief cuts. Now, when I say width of blade, what I am referring to is the distance from the teeth to the back of the blade. Okay? So what you want to do is you want to come in a width of blade, then pull back out. There's no danger of you trapping the blade or catching the blade when you do that. Then come in from the side and join the two together. That piece will fall out. You continue that practice on the other side. You then repeat, and you just keep repeating this whole two-cut motion, taking little chunks out until such a time as you get down to the bottom, and then you may end up at that point having to use either a chisel or sandpaper or file to smooth out the bottom of the cut. Okay? You just simply cannot come in here and go around like that. It just doesn't work. Okay? The results, if you try to do that, are going to be either a twisted blade, pull the blade off the tracks, or you're going to break the blade. None of these things are major, okay? The only thing that they do is they cause downtime, and if people are in a panic and a lot of people need to use the machine, you're not going to be on their Christmas list as a result of the fact that you made them wait to use the machine, okay? So be kind to your fellow students and take the time to do the relief cuts. Now, that's about all there is with the bandsaw. So let's go over to the Thunder Lab and we'll take a look at some of the end product.